I got Nick Sloan on tonight from the All-American Reptile and Plant Expo. They're going to be in Charlotte this weekend. I've had the good fortune of being at both shows in Colorado. I highly suggest you attend if you're able. We're going to catch up with Nick tonight. He also is one of the owners of Sloan Reptiles, and he's been at the game a long time. Will be very fun. I'm looking forward to catching up with Nick. Stick around. We got a fun show for you tonight. What's going on, guys? Happy Tuesday night. I hope that you're doing well. It's kind of weird. It's like the calm before the storm, I feel busy with stuff I'm not usually busy with. It's like a nice time to catch up on stuff. So anyhow, I was trying to think to describe how I feel. It's kind of weird. Like I say, I'm busy catching up on stuff, but I haven't been doing a whole lot snake related. So I hope you're doing well tonight, though. Everything is well here, and I'm looking forward to a big October. I got those details for you coming up. As I said in the intro, Nick Sloan from the All-American Reptile and Plant Expo. I should know it. I've been talking about these shows now for not quite a year, but well, that's a little exaggeration. A solid 8 months anyway. I've been talking about these shows, so I should have that down. But Nick is on. He's been an awesome host out in Colorado for me. Great show that he and Troy and Lauren and Lisa have been putting on, and they're expanding and growing. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We'll get into. I find it intriguing combining the plant and the reptile hobby. It works when I see it in person. I don't know that I would have risked as much as they did on that brand. So I think it's really cool. And I mean that in a totally positive way. Like I'm wildly intrigued by it. So we'll get into that. And then some stories of family entrepreneurship. I got to know his family a little bit over the couple times that I've been there. And it seems to run fairly strong streak of entrepreneurship there. So we'll get into all of that tonight. I hope that you're doing well. Thank you all for being here. A couple updates here. I'm trying to look. Oh yeah, Troy, Nick and Fun don't go together. Hey, Troy, I'm noticing a trend here, man. You pick some mighty handsome friends, and I'm starting to wonder if I don't know if I'm on the friend side or the not side. Come on, this face right here. I got it. I'm in, right? Thanks for being here, man. So a couple announcements. One really, really big, important one before I lose you on the announcements. I realize that sometimes I can get rambling. Next Tuesday night, I cannot do the show. I'm going to do it Wednesday night. I had a scheduling conflict. Good opportunity for my other business came up. I've got to go to San Antonio this coming weekend on Sunday, and I will be on an airplane flying home Tuesday night when I should be sitting here, hanging out with you all. So have no fear. The show will go on, but it's got to be on Wednesday night. And that was the night that Brian Gundy was going to be on. And it was a last minute change with this other thing that came up. So I had to reschedule Brian. He was gracious enough to reschedule to October 1st. So next week will be Chris from B and S Reptilia. We'll do a Tinley pre-show. He is who vends Tinley with me. And we're going to cover. That was a good one. I tried to rush down dinner. Excuse me. We're going to cover what we got going on at Tinley, what we're looking for, just a fun thing. And if you don't know Chris, come hang out with Chris and I on next Wednesday night. It'll be a Wednesday night show. I'll put a bunch of posts on Instagram to remind everybody of it, but it will not be on Tuesday next week. So again, my thanks to Brian Gundy and to Chris Shelley at B and S Reptilia for being flexible with me and making all of those schedule things work. So huge thanks to Portuguese pythons. I did a opening of some snakes that arrived from them today. You can check that out on Instagram. A little spoiler, one's a pied ultra male, nice male. He's just about ready to go. Going to beef him up just a little bit, let him settle in for, a month or two kind of deal. But he's just about ready to jump into the action. And then a super blackhead ultra male as well. So this might be the breeding season of ultra male. Last season was the breeding season of clown axanthic. This one maybe of ultra male. So huge thanks to them. Always great to do business with them. As you can, you can't see it right now, but they are great supporters of the show. Their logo is front and center up top there. Thank you to them. Thanks, Renee and Danny. You guys are great. We got, I did get, I got a 10 egg clutch this week from a first time mom, and it's my first shot at Ultramel Clowns. So those are coming. I say that not to brag. I say it just because I'm happy and I'll share it with you, but also a lot of those animals will be for sale. There'll be Ultramel het clowns in there. There'll be clown het Ultramels in there. And I got a few shots at Ultramel clown double visuals as well. And I say that because Patreon gets first dibs on the hatchlings and also the top 2 tiers of Patreon. All of the money, all of it. I take care of the fees, everything. All the money that you put in converts to store credit. So got some good stuff cooking. You might keep an eye on that. Over the next 2 weeks, I'm a little over 2 weeks out from going pretty crazy on shows. I'm going to give you the show rundown here in just a moment of where I'll be vending through October and into November. But the next 2 weeks, I'll be updating everything. All the new hatchlings that have been eating, successfully take their meals. I've been getting them ready. That's some of the busy stuff I was talking about doing earlier in the show. I got some triple het hypo clown axanthics. Those will be on properroyals.com. I've got some double het clown axanthic gravels. I got to shed test those, but I'm hoping I can get some sheds and some results back in time for like Tinley time when maybe some of us will see each other. Those will be on there. And then I've got a few things that I thought would be breeders. I thought would be holdbacks. And as I'm doing my pairings, you always got to look at yourself honestly and say, what are you really going to use and what do you need to let go of? Time, space, resources, all that. So all that's happening right now. I need to clear things out and get ready for a big last fourth quarter push and clean a little bit of house. So those will all go to Patreon first, then properroyals.com. Then really the show circuit, and they probably won't hit Morph Market until after, mid-November sometime when that show season ends for me. So if you were looking for something, message me, keep an eye on Instagram. I'll post all that on Instagram as well. October 6th, a little over 2 weeks away, I will be in Minneapolis at the Cold-Blooded Expo. Obviously the weekend of the 11th, October 11th through 13th, I'll be at Tinley. I'll be vending with Chris at B and S Reptilia. October 20th, I'll be at the Snake Discovery Show in Hastings, Minnesota. October 26th, I'm going to Fargo. I've never been to North Dakota. North Dakota or South Dakota? Fargo, North. It's North, right? I should learn. They're going to put me in the chipper if I don't. I go into Fargo, wherever it's at, I'll be there. And then November 3rd, I'll be in Des Moines. I get a weekend off. And then the following weekend, I believe, is down to Kansas City as well. So catch me somewhere, because after that, I think the inventory will be gone for a little bit. I do have a bunch of females and girls still going. Hopefully they will replenish, but that's what I have going on. And I just literally, as I was prepping for the show with Nick, I'll be playing this weekend in Rosemount, Minnesota. For all of you locals, if you want to catch up, just shoot me a message. I don't have the full details. I'm looking on my phone right now. I literally just got the invite. So anyway, I will be playing this Saturday night in Rosemount, Minnesota, if anybody's interested. Here we go. So Nick Sloan, I had not met Nick before April when I was out there for the first All-American Reptile Plant Expo in Castle Rock, Colorado. I got to meet Nick. He was focused. He was running his show, very gracious. We kind of missed each other quite a bit. And then just by sheer luck of choosing seats, I strolled into the I don't know if it's official, the organized vendor dinner. And I think there was literally 1 or 2 seats left. And I happened to plop down right next to Lauren, who's Nick's wife. and I think across from Nick. And we ended up spending an evening together, and it was pretty nice occasion. We got to hang out, get to know each other a little bit, spend a little more time together this show when I was just out there again. And just what a really great person, clearly very, very well respected in the industry. I hadn't realized, regionally you get to know different people, but there's different cool things going on in different regions. And being from Florida, I really am just now getting familiar with the Midwest region, much less like the Mountain West and heading out west. So it was neat to hear Nick's story. We'll get into some of that tonight, but Nick's been at it a very, very long time, knows what he's doing, knows the industry well. So I'm happy to have him on his show. And I headed west. He and Troy and Lauren and Lisa are heading east to Charlotte this weekend for the All-American Reptile and Plant Expo in Charlotte. Please welcome for the very first time to the Proper Royal stage, Nick Sloan. Nick, how you doing tonight, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Is that a plant just strategically there, like dangling behind you? You're like, let me tie this all together here, right?
Very strategic. The only thing I don't have at the house is any kind of snake. I've got lizards and I've got amphibians, but I have zero snakes at the house. So I couldn't strategically just have one over my shoulders.
Well, thank goodness you have that. Thank goodness you have that plant then, right? Otherwise, you would just look like a fraud.
Just fake. I have no idea what I'm doing unless I'm surrounded by the things that I help sell.
Hey, speaking of which, my mic stand here, I bumped it or something. One second here. Okay, there we go. You got to tighten the right thing in the right place, All right.
Costco had me messing with his in Colorado, and I kept like leaning towards it, and he's like, "You can just move it." Yeah, I can do that.
I actually, there's no reason for you to know this, but for a long, long time, I really fought having this microphone in my face. And then like every podcaster had like a more and more ridiculous like ordeal of a microphone in front of them. And I'm like, this microphone, I literally have recorded a whole room with. And when I went to go to post-production, I was like, what is that? What is that noise in the background? It was picking up the crickets outside of my house. And so to have this thing this close to my face is completely unnecessary, but it appears people don't take me as seriously if it's not on screen, much like your plant. Otherwise we would both be completely fraudulent. If
next time I'll have to have like a big old microphone and like a Woma python hanging from the back and just plants everywhere. And I'll be real. So I'm just barely making it.
I had to laugh. I think my good buddy Mike from Herp Collectors, I think he's actually going to be live streaming from the Charlotte show. And I saw, and these are all good friends from Florida. We kind of came up at the same time and we're good buddies. But I saw their setup from Bob's show, and they got like helmets on, like they're down on the NFL Sunday. I'm like, what are you guys doing, man? We're just talking to each other here.
You know what? He was doing it in Daytona. I did his show. I can't remember if I put headphones on.
No. I hadn't seen him before. This was the newest thing I just saw from Southeast. Yeah. I mean, it has like the headphone with like the microphone, like coming around their mouth. I was like, all right, guys, just keep going. I guess we all,
it's all stayed together and doesn't, you don't have to put it all together there. Like, I can't imagine putting together your little microphone arm there on site. I saw Costco doing it in Denver, and he was very frustrated.
That's why I was just like, I just let mine rip live. I'm like, look, man, it's live, it's real. And I felt so bad. Lauren and Lisa were such good sports. The power went out right in the middle of the live broadcast.
Well, if you didn't know, Costco and I were actually doing my interview in the room at the same time. So
were you?
You guys had backup lights and the lights coming through.
Yeah.
And then we were in the conference room, so it was just pitch black.
Total. Yeah, because you had the little lounge, right? Like the little, like the tent.
So you're just both like, I was like, oh, and I was like, that's sort of my job, isn't it? So I'd like jump up and go figure out what was going on. Went over and was trying to turn everything back on. I was like, I can't do this. And then someone hit a pole. So
yeah, it actually is a good segue because I was going to ask, like, what. Obviously, we find in life there's things we can control and we can't control. And clearly, of all the things you do for the show, you're not running the electrical service from the city supply there, nor are you controlling when it goes away. But You've got how many? You've done two. It seems like so many more, but it's only 2 shows you've done so far, right?
It only been 2 shows. It feels like we've been at it for years, and I have to remember. I'm like, this was April, so
Yeah.
in what is it's September, and so it's been 5 months.
Yeah.
Almost less than it was less than 5 months between our 2 like Castle Rock shows.
Right. But I know the work that goes into it, and I've never. I'm not saying I've ever put on a Reptile Expo, but the event scene, I did a lot of weddings in my day for, hospitality and whatnot. What are some of the, what were some of the things you learned from the first show that you wanted to implement into this one? And then, I guess take it into how you, somewhere along the way, you decided you were going to go nationwide with this thing. And I'm sure that seed was always percolating, but somewhere you flipped the switch pretty quick from what I've heard, but I don't know specifically on those details.
It's very quick. So really the decision to start the show began, I think Lauren and I probably started talking about it like October of 23. And it was right after Reptilian Nation. He had been coming around saying like, hey, we're not going to come back. And Lauren and I started mulling it over. We're like, okay, like what if we did a show? And I'd like bring it up occasionally and we'd talk about it a little bit. We're like, well, let's just find out. Like, he's not going to be back. April is going to be empty. We're not going to have our show that we usually have. So like, let's see. And so we started looking into some numbers, looking into some stuff like that. And Troy happened to be coming through to Pomona to go to the Pomona Super Show breakfast. And he was like, hey, so what's Ryan doing with the show? And I was like, he's not coming back. And he's like, is anyone else talking about doing it? And I was like, I'm looking into it. And like, well, let me know about that. Like, I want to know if you start doing it, I want to help. And I talked to Lauren. I was like, I think it'd probably be a good idea. Like, we want to run something that's better run, and we don't want to be bombarded ourselves. Like, especially we've got 2 under 2, so that's always chaos. And I work in the construction business and then the snake business. So we were like, let's get Troy. And so we launched our website February 15th because it was my birthday, and then the show happened April 27th. So
yeah. When did you put the deposit down on the space? I'm not going to ask you how much you put down, but when did you put down? Because that's when it really gets real. When you sign that check, that's when it's real, right?
Oh yeah, it was January 30th or something like that. It was like, I think it was about 2 weeks. It may have been a little bit later. It was about 2 weeks after Pomona. We had to rush, and they were like, like Douglas County Fairgrounds actually was like, haha, good luck getting a date. We have like booked out for 5 years.
Right.
And we happened to get, wait a second, we have a date in April. And we were like, yep, that's ours. We're taking it, like 100%. And then they're like, oh, there's a September date too. This never happens. Like, this is meant to happen. And we're like, here's all the money. We want those days. So
75 days basically before the show, you're jumping in. And you guys were doing radio ads. Did you do billboards? Or you did all print ads along with radio? In
Colorado, billboards is a little different. We don't have as many.
Probably a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I actually haven't even really looked into it, if it's like laws or anything like that. But so we don't have a huge amount. Yeah. And where there are like just regular physical standing billboards. And I looked into this because I was like, all right, this is a great one. Let's look at this. And it was like $16,000 for 4 weeks.
Oh no.
Like, I don't know if vendors really want to pay $1,000 a table yet. So,
yeah.
And we didn't have we had our concept. We didn't have a proof of concept yet. So we do blip billboards, which can run different campaigns for how much you want to do. So you're like, you want to be seen at 15 different places around town. You can set that up for a certain number of times. So we do blip billboards. We did radio. We do radio in 2 radio stations. And then Facebook, Instagram. The first show would have been Facebook, Instagram was really our big push. And as of now, we're sort of figuring out TikTok and Snapchat.
Yeah, right. I gotcha.
I've TikTok is odd. I will get a notification of someone commented on it. I'm like, oh, cool. I go click on it and it's like, yeah, he was super sad. Can't believe they did that to him. And I'm like, this was a advertisement for information about a show. Who are you responding to?
I'm laughing because just today somebody was in a group chat. Somebody was like, does anybody here have 1,000 TikTok followers? And I haven't logged on to my TikTok in like a year and a half. And I was like, oh, look, I do. And he's like, okay, perfect. We got to work together. And I'm like, that is not my comfort zone. Like I got no shame. I'll try it, but I know nothing about what's going on.
I don't love it. And considering that I like seem like I'm young enough, I should know all this stuff.
Right.
I don't understand it.
I don't. I want to, and I do think. Actually, I very seriously. I think it's important to try and understand.
Yes.
That stuff. I guess I'm the old dude in the room too. These whippersnappers these days. I think it is important to understand it because otherwise you just go obsolete and you become a dinosaur and you die like the dinosaurs. But man, yeah, I can't crack what like works well and what doesn't and why it does. And I've done very serious stuff and I've done really stupid stuff on there. I experimented one time. I held two hatchlings in my hand and I just did this to a beat and then I set it on loop. So it looked like I was doing it infinitely. And like that crushed it. That was like my most successful TikTok moment.
And that's the show is a little bit harder, right? I think I could probably do more with Sloan Reptiles, but I'm like, I don't know how. I guess we can run around the show, and this is the reason TikTok and the reason the advertisings that we do is that we want people that are new to get into the industry, right? We want
right
we want young like kids to start to join because eventually we all die off and there's no industry anymore.
That's right.
So like. Hopefully during Charlotte, I have a little bit more downtime. Like we don't have to set up the tables. We don't have to we're hiring a little bit more staff to do ticketing and stuff like that. Granted, I didn't do any tickets in Castle Rock ever, and I'm constantly running around. I hope that I don't get as many radio hits of, hey, Nick. And I can take time and go do some maybe TikTok videos, get people excited, get people interested, and boost that a little bit. I have no idea if I'll do a good job at it because I don't understand TikTok, but we're going to try.
We could try it. We'll get in it. And yes, John, as long as I can find my login and I will plan to be there. It is Saturday afternoon. I got that gig all of a sudden, but I think it's only like 20 minutes. So yeah, I will be there, John. Okay. So back to this business end of things though. Did you find, so when I hear radio, billboards, it sounds, speaking of us being the old dudes in the room, it sounds a little bit archaic. And in my other career, I've actually gotten into not fights, but contentious arguments with what I would consider like the old school and board members. And I would say, somebody said earlier, I think Kevin said, billboards are crazy expensive. Why are we spending this? Like we could, for the salary that we're paying for a billboard on I-26 coming out of Asheville, we could hire like a top-notch social media person and target, reach, interact with, retain, follow up with all those good business catchwords. But I do still hear, like you say, flipboards, radio ads. What did you find was, were you able to get any feedback on where people were coming from, or is it quantifiable? What'd you find?
So this is what I need to sit down really and figure out. So people don't love to give more information than they need to and
right.
Get.
Yeah.
I wish Eventbrite had how'd you hear about us?
Yeah.
And even then, we can do a radio ad and do a promo code, do code radio.
Right.
No one will use it.
Yeah. Trust me, I know how hard it is to get people to use promo codes. I'm like, there's free money, just use it.
No. And well, some people really love them too.
That's true too.
But the majority don't. So radio, I'm having a hard time. I don't know if it truly works. It's a lot of money for me to be I have no idea if this is doing what I need it to do.
Yeah.
Because I would rather take that and put it into social media, and social media an ungodly amount of money on social media in the last few months. I would rather do that. But I also, like, if I talk to a vendor, they're like, I didn't hear any radio ads from this reptile show. I didn't see any billboards from this reptile show. So it's one of those, like, okay, if you don't do it, the vendors feel like you're not trying. You know what really does a very good job of getting people through the door beyond social media? Like, we do have a Zipster on our website, or not a Zipster. Zipster is what it's all ran through. We have a little form on our website. You log into the website and you say, how'd you hear about us? Mm-hmm. Most people probably ignore that because they do that. But we have it on there. It's like, hey, how'd you hear about us? And click it. And a lot of it's mostly Facebook and Instagram. Like, I heard about you from Facebook. I heard about you from Instagram. I heard you about you from Facebook. And I think we've had like 10 radio ones in the last few months. We have Charlotte going for radio, and we've had Denver and Colorado Springs is what we had going for radio. So
yeah,
need to try some ways of figuring out. We're actually going to try something new with our Charlotte show here. So we have our title sponsors, which one of them, REDLINE Shipping, right here.
Great.
We're going to do like a title sponsor giveaway. Mm-hmm. So when you walk in the door, we're going to have a banner, and we're going to have a cage from Reptile Basics, some lighting from Arcadia, some a gift card to Palm Street, and some Reptichip bedding. And then Robin, I don't know, we've fully decided on what he's going to be doing for that, but it's going to be sitting right there. It's going to have an arrow to it, and it's like, enter to this giveaway. And then we'll have in there, like, how'd you hear about us? And hopefully more people are like, oh, I could win all of that.
Right.
I'll put all this information in.
Yeah.
Rather than, in Denver, we have a salmonella form we have to do for PACFA. And everyone hates it.
Right. I'm not here. Yeah. I heard there were some of the paperwork I heard grumblings about. I'll just leave it there from the vendor side. But you can't get around. That's not your fault. You can't get around that. And I mean, it's not FWC in Florida. So, I mean, I guess that's a positive, It
is a positive. And looks like Charlie from Shed Testing wants to do some free shed tests in our sponsor giveaway.
Yeah.
He is one of our tier 1 sponsors.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
We do a little bit different stuff with sponsorship and all that. So we do a lower level of sponsorship for fall and then for spring, so that we can have vendors that, like, I can't spend that much money. They want to at least get recognized.
Right.
We'll have like a tier 3, which is a cheap one to jump in. Tier 2 is a little bit more, and then tier 1's like the highest of those ones. Charlie, it says title, but we can certainly throw on there like, hey, we got some free shed tests for you.
Yeah. People like free stuff, especially free stuff they can use. Like, they'll use a shed test, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maybe we'll do something else like during the show. So we'll see if we can make that work, because I want to break down, am I wasting money on radio?
Yeah. It won't tell you anything about radio, and this probably is old news to you, but do you review any Google Analytics for your website or anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit. We try to do a little bit more. We try to work with the SEO a lot and try to get boosted up there. That's one of the main reasons we still use Eventbrite for ticketing services, is because their SEO really launches us to the top.
Yeah.
And if we use another ticketing service, which in the long run is cheaper for customers and all that, and we likely will switch over to it as our SEO flops and becomes a little bit higher up.
Yeah.
But right now it's hard.
Yeah. It's an endless chasing your tail kind of thing. And it's one of those things, as soon as you figure it out, it changes on you as well. So it's not like, I mean, this, I'm saying this mostly for the audience. It's not like you get done with SEO. You're never like, okay, cool, that's in place, on to something else. No, it's just this beast you endlessly sink money into, trying to figure it out and highlight and focus on. So, yeah, I don't know on radio. I really don't have any insight. But like I say, it really struck a nerve with me, because I can remember being since 2016 when I took that position, arguing with people, the amount we are spending to interact with nobody, to advertise a wedding space to every non-bride out there. This is not the way to go. And they have changed how they look at that. But anyway, So take us back to where the aha moment with the plants was. I hope I phrased it right in the intro. Like, the end result is killer. I don't know if when I was cooking it up, I would have gone, yeah, let me go run and put my deposit down on this really nice venue, by the way, really big venue. And again, I'm not going to say any numbers, but I have an idea of how many digits the discount had. I had no idea what the discount was, but I bet I could nail how many digits it is. So it's not cheap is what I'm saying. So where was the inspiration on the plants? Because clearly you believe in it, and clearly you saw an opportunity that other people hadn't taken, I guess is the way to put it.
So I originally brought up this idea. So Robin, REDLINE Shipping, and there's some stuff I'm going to leave it alone because I don't know what he's announced and what he isn't. But we were working on some stuff with plant things, and that sort of transitioned over to I was gonna talk to Potter about it, get an ARBC to really push, because I started growing plants almost 8 years ago now, and I had them in cages with animals, and then I was like, oh, going on to groups and like, how do I take care of this? How do I put this in a cage? And I was like, that's really cool, and I've never seen that before, and you can't buy it at a store. And then I started growing stuff, and then I started selling it, and then I ran into people in Indonesia that I could like buy from, and I could resell it. So I was bringing in stuff that doesn't even have a scientific name yet.
Oh, cool.
And I was selling it here. Like, sometimes some of the stuff I brought in was the first that had been in the US. And so I was doing that during like COVID. The peak of it was during COVID. And I was,
this was your sourdough?
Oh man. I mean, I was selling 50, 60 boxes of plants a week. I was shipping. I'd get up at 4 a.m. and do all this crazy stuff and throw it in there. And it was pretty wild. And as things slowed down on that, I never see plant people at shows. Like, there's a really big crossover for like vivarium plants and terrarium plants and I mean, house plants. People collect. We're a part of a hobby that is literally obsessed with collecting things, and like plants is another collector item. And so when I approached Potter, I was like, hey, I know the people in this industry, like the plant industry. I can reach out and be like, hey, come do my show. Like, this would be great. So we sort of set it up, and Potter's got a magnificent beast running. So
yeah, right.
Adding something in is a lot harder and a lot more work than it seems worth when you're like, I could fill the place with reptile people. I don't need to try to get plant people in there. And so it just sort of fitted away, and I don't blame him for it. Like, I probably, if I was running an ARBC too, I'd probably be like, it's a lot of work. And
not to mention probably 30 really good people pitch him really good ideas all the time. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we went a little bit. We like went a little bit further with it. I sent out information, all that. It just sort of fitted away when I would like go back to him like, hey, these guys are asking, like, are you going to do plant specific billboards? And they were like people were just a little concerned about it because plant people aren't used to this caliber of a show. And right. Reptile shows aren't even that big of a caliber of a show. Like, if we really go down into the pits of it, like aquarium reef show stuff, that's like $1,000 for a 10 by 10 booth. So when we're talking $300 for a booth, and people like in our industry, it's like, oh, that's really expensive.
Yeah.
It's in the middle. It's not even in the middle ground. Like, a home show is $1,000, like $1,200, $1,500 for a 10 by 10 booth. So plant people really aren't used to it. They're used to free plant pop-ups. So it just didn't really go anywhere because, like, the price, he wasn't going to change his prices. He could get vendors in for the price that he wanted.
Oh, he's got a years-long list. Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah. So I was in the industry watching, like, selling plants all the time. I would have people that were reptile people be like, hey, like Nick Sloan Reptiles. I was like, yeah. Like, and they're like, oh, I have reptiles too. I have this, I have this, I have this. So I'm like, this is a huge crossover that we're missing out on in most of these shows. Most of these people in plants, they'll spend thousands on a plant. Like, let's cross them over. Let's get them into the reptile industry and vice versa. And if we can get both industries buying into the other industry, it keeps our industries afloat and moving forward, especially in a time like right now, which we're in a down market. Like, if we can grow the industry and more people are interested in wanting in it and less are scared of it, that's how we go.
That's true. I think that last part is really, really key. Anybody that we can get to cross over is fantastic, but anybody that we can get to go, oh, these are pretty good people. That's a massive step forward too, because we're up against some weird stuff out there as far as perceptions go. And
yeah,
some of it's well earned by our friend in South Carolina, and others of it is, sorry, I just had to go,
no.
But it's frustrating. I mean, the root of it is, somebody on the Thursday morning show commented, there's like a whole auction or a year of auctions for US ARC that it's going to take for us to overcome that perception and that memory of that one person's action. So it is a bit of a fresh wound when I think of it that way. But yeah, getting a like a normalization of our world and our pets and our hobby and our industry and our business. How long have what's the name of your plant company? I want to make sure that I get it right. I saw that you had it on Facebook and I checked it out a little bit, but you laughed. Maybe it's not active. I don't know.
It's Terra Root Company.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've never really like sold through it as that. Facebook became like, so the reptile industry had Facebook for auctions and selling your snakes like in the early, like 2008 to 2014, like people were selling snakes like crazy on Facebook. And so you can't do that obviously now.
Right.
That's where the plant industry is at. Like there are auction groups, there's purge groups, and
okay.
Purge, if people don't know, like you go on there and you start a post, you're like, hey, I'm going to do a purge. And then on each comment, you just like post a picture of a plant and the price for sale. And then people comment like sold. So that's mostly how I sold the plants. And like right now I had to decide on what was going to be the one thing that I didn't put a lot of focus into right now.
Yeah.
Wife, kids, house, construction, Sloan Reptiles, AARP. I was like, okay, the plants, the market's a little like pretty slow on that. Like I don't have a lot of time to do 75 boxes a week and make the money I was making. So it sits in my shed greenhouse and grows. And that's about it, which is great about plants. Like I don't have to like.
That's true. You're not flipping their tubs.
I'm not like cleaning. I'm not like making sure that everything's getting taken. I'm not buying rats every week. I buy fertilizer, I water them, and then I sometimes I won't touch that room for 2 weeks for water or fertilizer, and they're just growing.
And it's fine. Yeah. Yeah, although I got to say, I mean, that was sort of the attraction with, not to that extent, but that was sort of the attraction with ball pythons. And then, I don't know, in some ways, rodents, the work is dirtier, but it's not that often. Like I've got a whole lot of, as long as the hoppers are full, I mean, the food hoppers, well, the baby hoppers are full too. That's fine too. But, the water's clean. I pop in, make sure there's no floods and make sure everything, and it's not that much work for a pretty good payoff. But yeah, I would think plants are probably even better if you can find the market. Before I'll move on from the plants here in just a second. What makes I guess it's like snakes, but what makes an expensive plant? I will say I was really intrigued because in my mind, I'm going, just like you said, if I got to pay $300 for a table and my average plant is, I don't know, a third of what I could sell an Enchi for, I better move, and we all laugh at selling Enchis. So, I better move a serious amount of plants. Dollar per person seems lower. Load footprint, like how many plants can I fit in the same place where I can fit a hatchling? Like this math's a little hard for me. So like what makes it work? And clearly there's something I'm missing either on volume or on pricing or both.
Yeah. So there's certain ways that plants can be propagated to make it a little bit quicker and easier for people.
That's true. There's the time. I didn't put that in. Yeah. Okay. So that's a good factor.
So a lot of the species you see in like Home Depot, King Supers is our grocery store. We have those here too. It's Kroger's. But inside your grocery store or inside Home Depot or Lowe's, anything you see in there, like a Monstera or to make it simpler terms, pothos or Swiss cheese plant or snake plants and that kind of stuff. Those are all tissue cultured, is what it's called. And you can take a leaf. I have one right here. It makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, that's why it's here.
See, my good friend, my authentic plant right here. It has a leaf. I'm down. All right, you got me so far. We got a leaf. I'm with you here.
You this leaf, and you can actually cut it up. And in these labs, they're called tissue culture labs. You can put these tiny amounts of leaf in, and it will start to produce thousands of plant with these tissue culture things. So a lot of the plants that you see that are like more common, like this one's actually more common now. This specific plant is not tissue culture, but it is now in stores tissue culture very easily. It's called a pothos, blue or something like that is the name. I go by scientific names, and I don't need to be that nerdy. So that's one of the ways. And so those are the cheaper plants you're going to see. You're going to see like $20, $15, $10. Those kind of plants are going to be really tissue cultured. So people can buy them wholesale for $1 a piece. They can sit in a room, get watered, and sit with light. And that's really the work you got to put into it. So when they come to the table, those are the ones that you see probably like packed together really strong inside 2-inch pots. Everybody's coming up, picking them up really quick, cheap.
Sure.
But those ones are good because like it's a quick turnaround. Like I don't need it. It doesn't need to be here very long. Someone's going to buy it really quick.
Yeah.
And then there's the more rare like species of plant. So if I had anything in here, I would make it work. But all the rare stuff's downstairs. So there's like philodendron species that are harder to tissue culture. So some things are a little harder to tissue culture. You can't just cut it, and it isn't very stable. And especially because what you're doing is getting a very small portion of the plant, and that could be a bad portion of cells. So when it replicates itself, that it comes out wonky. Like there's certain species that happen with those batches more often than not.
Oh, okay.
So another way that you'd have to do it with like the rare ones is cut between these nodes, and I don't know if I can get it close enough that anyone can see this. So where a leaf comes off is called a node. There's a wrong way, auxiliary root coming off. What you do is you cut here. You can put that in usually something a little bit more like that stays wet longer, like perlite or sphagnum moss or anything like that. And the root will begin to grow. And then as soon as the root's sort of established, and you can put different gels and all that kind of stuff, a growth point will start to grow on it, and a new plant will emerge from that. So that's just an evolutionary trait of like if something came up, munched on this, ate the bottom of it, this portion is going to continue to grow. Yeah. So you can do that with each and every single one of those. So like if someone has a rare plant and they've got 25 of those, cut it. It takes a lot longer. Like, so I have things that I've cut and they sat for 6 months before they did anything.
Oh, wow.
So like that's going to go a little bit on the rarity side of why they cost more. So some of them are, I think there was a plant, the variegated stuff is where I will go next, but I probably spent the most on like a normal, like you find it in the wild. It doesn't have any variegation. It doesn't have any kind of mutation. The most I've probably spent is like $500 for a 2-leaf cutting.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And there are people that have spent lots more. Like there was a philodendron spiritus sancti is what it used to be called. And I think I remember when I first got in, it was like $10,000 for a tiny plant like that big. Okay.
That's like the morph market moment. The first time I looked and I was like, oh, I need to learn more. Okay.
Yeah. So, and they're like, those things go cool. So that philodendron being expensive is because of the rarity. There's actually only like, I think 10 plants in the wild that they know about that exist still. And obviously Brazil is very large, so it's very hard to go through and like know exactly where plants are. Yeah. But they called it the spiritus sancti because it looked like flying spirits in the trees. So people really liked them because they were rare like that. And then there's the variegated, there's the mutation portion of plants. And that if a mutation is new, much like in ball pythons or any reptile for that matter, or amphibian, it costs more. So at our show, we had a vendor, Anastasia Fancy Foliage. She had there's philodendron Hopiae, and it was very expensive just as its single plant for a while. And then now it has a few mutations, and this Aria one she was like, oh yeah, this is $850. And I was like, oh wow, because you can buy a Hopiae for $20 now.
Oh, okay.
So, just depends on that rarity too, right? You can buy a normal ball python for $20, but then this mutation is
right. Yeah, and so somebody in theory, maybe not specifically that species, but $850 for a plant might sound a lot to me. But if you had the technology to do the tissue culture or the knowledge to grow from the nodes, you could literally propagate. That's the propagation method.
So the way that I only ever did it was just stuff. And I had some plants that could grow from leaf. They didn't need a node or anything like that. But mostly it was just cutting, putting it into sphagnum moss, getting it to grow, and then selling it. And a lot of my clientele was always like vivarium people. They wanted it for dart frogs and that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So that's sort of how they make their money, right? There's going to be at Overgrown Home, who's one of our vendors at the show, they had $2 tiny pots. And then they also had a $1,900 variegated philodendron billet. And it was large and it was big. And so they told us that they did about 40% better than they did in April.
Whoa.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. I mean, that's a sample of one. I mean, that just like a ball python show, you sell one double visual. Well, yeah, I did 60% better than last show, but that's a cool thing to hear with the plants though.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how they would generally like make more money, and then definitely volume. So they fit a few more, they put in shelves. We usually have plant vendors that have shelves behind all their tables. So it's all filled with plants. And then they just pull a tray out and just keep moving. And in April, all of our vendors just had to go back to their shops and get more to fill their tables. So.
Yeah, I remember that being a thing. And I guess the barrier to entry is lower. You probably a little different psychological, ethical thing. Oh, I bought a plant that died. Okay, that's different than okay. And maybe it's not, but in my mind, okay, it is different. I bought an animal and it died. That's not the same. So
yeah, it definitely is different. I think that there's probably going to be a certain group of people that are like, oh my gosh, like I love my plants so much. When they die, it sucks. But like, it's easier to.
Yeah. I think it's a different compartment, at least in my mind anyhow. And I don't feel bad saying that actually. That's a different compartment for me. I'm just one man.
If most of us eat lettuce, and I hope most of us do,
right.
We're eating a plant. Just because it's different species doesn't make it any different, except for you're not dying of poison.
Yeah, well, that's true. And okay, and so plants we can call poisonous, right? We don't have to see all the memes about poisonous plants. Okay, good.
There are poisonous plants. That's ingested and all that is what causes it. There are some that have like you can't necessarily call it a venom because it doesn't inject it, but you touch them and it's pretty painful.
That's true. Yeah, the stingers. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but it still wouldn't be venom because it isn't injected into your bloodstream. So
right. Sorry, I mostly just laugh at what people will get mad at, but that's one of them on my list there. Now people
I don't know if I get mad, but I'll be like, hey.
Yeah, I don't get mad. I laugh. It's entertaining. It's morning coffee. Okay, have some coffee. Before the break at the top of the hour here, tell me about, I'm really into sort of understanding certainly businesses, but business decisions. What led to Charlotte? And I don't think it's a secret. No, I know it's not a secret. It's on your website, Charlotte and Kansas City. Clearly there's lots of markets in this big country of ours, and there's lots of places to go and lots of people and lots of places. So what kind of goes into that decision-making?
So most of our decision of like starting a show somewhere is not to step on anyone's toes. And there are certain like companies doing shows in the industry that it's impossible to not be competing with them, but we're sort of on a different level, right? So like what we look for is an area that doesn't have a higher end show that is going to bring in vendors from outside of state that are going to be the vendors that they've likely never seen at any of these shows. And we've tried to find an area that is going to support that. You know, I could easily say I can go to Rifle, Colorado, because they'll never have this show here, but like that wouldn't be sustainable for anybody.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You got to have the audience as well, you know, and a venue and all of that.
So when we were first doing Denver, I went out to Tinley and was trying to get some recruiting of like, hey, you do really cool stuff. We both breed ball pythons, so this is okay for me to say this. We needed less ball python people.
Sure.
And
that's the hip thing right now.
And so I went out and we were talking to people, and there were just multiple people that were like, you ever come to the East Coast, like North Carolina, South Carolina, I'm in. And I was like, I'm going to look into the real numbers of that. Like, because I have a lot of people comment like, hey, we'd love to have you in Texas. We'd love to have you in Florida. We'd love to have you in Iowa. Like, we've had a lot of those comments, but that one I was like, okay, let me look. There's not a big show in that area. There's not a big show like within a good amount of distance. Daytona's in Florida, but North Carolina is far enough away from that it doesn't really affect. Reptilian Nation wasn't in Atlanta at the time. That's a whole different.
Yeah, I got it. We're good. There you go. Yeah.
And Bob hadn't announced it yet until actually we were in Tinley. And so I was like, well, let's see. And I found this venue. It's in the heart of Charlotte, which is like unusual for finding a big venue in the heart of somewhere, because like Denver doesn't have it.
Right.
And then we went, okay, we're not stepping on toes around us. What's the population of North Carolina? What's the population of Charlotte?
And I'm sorry to interrupt. What is the venue in Charlotte? Both for everybody else's information, but also mine. The last property I worked for was about an hour and a half from Charlotte. So we did a whole lot of fundraisers and big, you know, money, people rubbing elbows and all that stuff.
Yeah. So it's the Park Expo and Conference Center.
Okay.
And I think it's like 10 minutes away from the convention center down there, which Charlotte Convention Center will not let us in there. No reptiles.
No reptiles.
So
where do they see what we keep under the table?
Yeah, seriously.
I've only heard.
So yeah, we just wanted to find somewhere that could sustain a bigger show, had a good population, could be a good destination. You know, we could find a 100,000 square foot building. Well, not really, but we possibly could find a 100,000 square foot building somewhere, but then it could be a really boring location to go.
Yeah.
And Charlotte's just a beautiful city in general. I had actually never been there until we booked this.
Oh, cool.
Troy and I were supposed to go out there, and obviously Troy's son had his seizures and all that. So I wound up going on my own, and I was walking around downtown Charlotte, and I was like, this is weird to not have trash and not have like human feces on the sidewalk.
Oh.
I'm used to that in Denver.
Oh my. Okay. You got to come to Minneapolis then too, man.
It's been a long time since I've been to Minneapolis.
It's beautiful, man. Yeah, it's real nice.
So that is why we chose Charlotte, is mostly just for the East Coast. Doesn't have like a good show right up there. Doesn't have a bigger show. I hope for a good show. And didn't have anyone that we were going to really step on toes with. So actually Repticon's been really gracious. We've been working with them a lot.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. It's cool.
How does that conversation go? Since this is a good one. I know that I can understand how the bad ones go. How do the good conversations go with somebody like Repticon, since you brought it up?
So it was pretty fortunate that we flew out. Troy drove out to Charlotte. Oh man, the months are blending together now.
Right. Yeah.
To Charlotte to see the sort of Charlotte Repticon. It's actually outside of Charlotte. It's about an hour or 45 minutes outside of Charlotte. So he went out there to talk to vendors, and he ran into some staff and some vendors, and they were like, well, you know, like leave some signs and we'll talk about it. And like at Denver, I've put flyers out and all that, and they're like, well, as long as like you're not booking them on our dates. I'm like, that's just silly. Even if we consider ourselves to be a different show, we're not going to book on the same weekend as you. And like we do actually have an accidental, like Kansas is going to overlap with somebody, mostly because like we searched and that date just hadn't popped up yet. And so we have a show on the same weekend as someone else in Kansas. completely unintentional. We're not coming in to try to squash and do that kind of thing. But like,
Right.
it doesn't matter. Like, we don't want, just because you're a different type of show, it doesn't mean we're going to try to do it at the same weekend.
Yeah.
And so that conversation has gone fairly well with them of like, hey, let's just work together. Right.
Yeah.
And so
that's nice. That's good. And that's how it should be. I mean, like you say, as long as you're not actively like headhunting. I mean, to your point just a moment ago, we both sell ball pythons. Like we're both at our core, we're here for our brand. You know, I mean, it can be, yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I sometimes I feel like Repticon gets a bad rap, but I always had a good experience with them in Florida. And that's really, that circuit is where I cut my teeth and got any sort of foothold in this industry. And the people both running the show, but also that vended at it were instrumental in me still being here today. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, Repticon is 100% needed, right? Like
yeah,
the bigger shows for the smaller hobbyists getting into it. It's a daunting task. And it can be a little bit much like financially for them to jump into something because they don't want to come to the show and be like, oh, I don't have a banner. I don't have this. I don't have.
yeah.
And they come in, but what they can do at Repticon is go in and get a cheaper table and get a crowd that really just is the hobbyists or really who know about Repticon most of the time. And they're always just coming back and they can be seen. And then that's what builds, right? Like,
yeah. And I would say, you're right. The Repticon has a lot of smaller neighborhood shows, but I'd say Tampa Repticon is one of the finest shows out there. I mean, just below the national caliber shows. I mean, that's an excellent show to get into and to be a part of and to go to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And they do have certain areas that are
right
larger shows. Like their Winston-Salem show is large.
Yeah, probably
about as big as our Denver show. Which Denver could be bigger if we had a bigger space. But
okay. For my own reference, how big was the square footage in Denver? If you happen to remember off the top of your head,
32,000 square feet.
And so, did you get 100,000 in Charlotte?
100.
Wow. Okay. All right. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I feel bad for the audience. So, like, great, Adam. That's neat that you can envision in your head. That's a big show, though. But so I had heard once, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I'd heard that 100,000 square feet is about the size of a Walmart like a grocery Walmart. Does that feel like that size?
Yeah.
That's a big space, man.
Yes, it is.
Did you and well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but how's the volume? How's the sales for the table space?
So we have 150 vendors as of today. We went into this space originally when I went into Charlotte. We were looking at a 40,000 square foot space because we're like, let's just go Denver size to get us started.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the same complex, but it's a different venue hall, and it was garbage. I went into it and I was like, no, we can't do this. And then he's like, well, we have 80,000 square feet. And I like look at this thing. It's got 8-foot ceilings and it looks like a parking garage. And I was like, nope, we're not going there. And to answer, yes, we do still have tables open because we have 104.
That's where I was respectfully trying to come up to. I was like, let me put this the right way. Okay, so that's Josh said, I mean, last minute plans, you know.
So we went and we decided let's just go for the big one. We got to do it. And so we gave it room to grow because we would like it to be like a destination area. So we have the capability of 450 10 by 10 booths.
Wow. And for reference, how many, I'm sure you know, but I don't know, maybe you don't know, but how many 10 by 10 booths are at, say, Tinley? 7?
I think it's about the same.
Because I think Daytona's around 700, but I think Tinley's, 450, 500, something like that.
Yep. So we would be, if it was 12, we'd be the same size as Tinley.
Wow. Okay, so that's even a little bigger undertaking than that first deposit that I asked you about putting down. Oh man. Okay. All right.
Charlotte is, Denver. I'm known out here. I've been around. I've been doing stuff out here for a long time.
Fair point. Yeah. 2 decades, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. 2 decades out here, and people. It was a little easier to like, hey, we're gonna do a show. And they're like, okay, jump in. And we could reach out to some of the people that are outside of state that are willing to drive and all that. And we've got good friends that are good with that. But the East Coast felt, as we walked into the shows of Repticon, like we know one person, and it's Jeremy Brassman Reptiles. And I know some of these people in passing from years and years of doing this, but not like, hey, trust me with this.
Right. That was some of the regional stuff I was talking about earlier. Like I felt like I was really in, and then I moved to Minnesota and I was like, I was just like really got terrified this time last year. And then I was like, oh, winter's coming. Nobody does. It's too cold here. And which is not everybody. They still figure it out. Yeah. But I didn't know that. And I could sense you would feel that a little bit, where you look in your whole room of everybody relying on you. And you're like, I know their names, but I've never worked with these. I don't know them. I've never worked with these folks before.
Yes. Yeah. So, Charlotte is a bigger undertaking. You know, Troy and I were talking about this the other day. Like, do we like, and I equated it. I was like, you know what? Each location is like a new business. Like Denver was a new business. And
each one's a startup. Yeah, you're right.
Took really, really well. And then Charlotte was like, hey, we gotta work on this. We're gonna have to like really work for it. So I flew out to 2 different shows in North Carolina. Troy drove out to another one on his own. And then we flew to Daytona, and we're talking to folks down there about doing the show. And, you know, we did gather up some vendors and do that kind of stuff. But like we had to push it because North Carolina is used to Repticon and Show Me's. And like that's
it. Yeah.
And now last week we've had like, I think we've had like 15 vendor registrations because it's just been like, oh, it's really popping up. Like it's really doing this. And that's been cool. Like that's been really cool. And then Bob having his Southeast Reptile Expo, like there was a lot of chatter at that one as well, which was awesome to hear. Like that people were like, oh yeah, and Troy was out there. Troy is a road warrior. I am not. I will not drive all over.
I was going to say, and Troy drives it. Like it's like somebody made the comment to me, Adam, you're everywhere. Actually, it was, I don't know if you saw it. I was in the back of one of Dave Kaufman's videos.
Oh yeah.
And somebody was like, you're like Forrest Gump, man. You're everywhere. And I was like, yeah, well, I could fly there. It's no problem. But yeah, Troy is going from Iowa. Like it's nothing to like you say, Daytona, Atlanta, Charlotte.
He was like, oh, he drove to Daytona too.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does it. He's older than I am, and I will not sit in a car that long anymore. My wife's like, are we going to drive to Kansas? And I'm like, no. I should do that though. I did used to drive to Daytona and all that for Reptile, like doing the show, bending the show.
Oh, from Denver?
Yep.
Wow. Well, so, gosh, I could, it's totally off the path, but you probably know Marshall at NoCo Reptiles. I was blown away when I hear people drive there, but then I was more blown away when Marshall was like, yeah, I just have a buddy with a storage unit. I just leave my stuff in Daytona and I just ship it in. And I'm like, for one show a year? He's like, yeah, that's how good it is. I'm like,
yep.
I want to be this guy when I grow up, you know, like that's outstanding.
I don't think Marshall was in Daytona this year.
He was talking a couple years back. And I think,
that was me having a recollection, not like me saying like, no, you're wrong. I just was like, oh, I didn't see Marshall there.
Yeah, no, this has been a little while back. And it also was maybe him telling stories of the past or like a heyday kind of thing. But I was like, oh, okay. Well, like I say, I like logistics. I have friends that tour Europe and I'm like, how do you guys get your equipment there? And they're like, we just get a storage unit in Amsterdam and we just have one of everything we need and we just fly in and then we can tour all of Europe and then pack it up for another 9 months. I'm like,
there are certainly ways
to think about that. Yeah.
I've flown and had animals on a table at Tinley, like with my display. So I will figure it out before I drive now.
Right. Okay. Hey, before we take a really quick short break, Kevin at A Exotics asks, how big is Kansas if you're able to share that? Kansas City.
I am. So Kansas at the moment, we've booked just half of the place because we didn't quite know yet what we needed to do with it. So we have 35,000 square feet.
Okay.
For Kansas and for December. And then May will be 70,000 square feet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I had a conflict. I didn't even try to get into the Denver one, but I've hint. I did try. I did apply for the spring one. So, if you're, when the time comes, that's great. So 70, okay. Going big on all of these venues.
Yeah. We don't want to go like 15,000, 20,000 square feet. Like that's a large building, but we don't want to, we want to be able to fit the people in. We don't like having a 60-person wait list in Denver. That's not,
yeah.
We don't like to say no to the people that we enjoy.
Right. Yeah. And I've been down this road on my show before, but I mean, at the end of the day, as the promoter, it's your job to put on the best show for the customers and get as many people in. It's like, I go back to music or restaurants all the time, but just because somebody wants to play a festival doesn't mean the promoter is going to hire them and put them on the stage. So it's, I get that stuff. So that's nothing underhanded there. Nick, I still got to ask you about this whole family entrepreneurship and this streak that goes through you. But I got to take a quick moment here, say thanks to some of the people that do fill my room here, pay a couple bills. So, guys, I got to tell you about REDLINE shipping. If you're not using them or you haven't heard of them, I don't know how that's possible. Robin and his team are phenomenal. They are reptile people taking care of your reptiles. The user interface is fantastic. The experience is fantastic. And the customer service is second to none. I can tell you at any time during the shipment, you can call them and they can go find exactly where your animal's at and have it confirmed that it's in good hands and good care. And at the end of the day, that's what the experience is about, is keeping those animals safe. So check out REDLINE if you haven't. And if you have and you haven't used the promo code, feel free. Proper5 will get you $5 off your next shipping label. Very similarly, when it comes to customer service, is Charlie at shedtesting.com. Those formerly Gray Rider Reptiles, totally rebranded, same person, same great service, same great product, shedtesting.com. That's all you got to remember anymore. Charlie is who you work with. Charlie's who does the tests. He's the one that tells you your tests. And if you have any questions about it, he's the one that helps you out. And he's done a fantastic job. He's researching and creating his own tests these days, as well as working with partners around the world to really maximize the library of tests. So check back on the website. I did hear him say, nothing official, but that a lot of people are asking about paint. He says that's about a month out. So stay tuned on that. Always new tests coming to light available there. I'm so excited to tell you about Charlie. I forgot the promo. Proper 15 will get you 15% off of 2 full orders. You can order as many shed tests, individual shed tests as you like per order, and you can do that twice with Proper 15. So it's a pretty good chunk of change you'll be able to save on there. RGen Reptiles, I regret to have to grab the phone while I'm on the air, but I need to be, everybody's got these really cool hatchlings, and I got to make sure that I get it right. RGen is Robbie. Speaking of the Carolinas, the good part, the good folks in the Carolinas. Robbie's in Greer, South Carolina, and he's an excellent person to do business with. I've done business with him in the past, and he's got some really exquisite animals. Let's see. Recently put up a male pastel blackhead DG clown on Morph Market. Pastel blackhead DG clown male on Morph Market. There's your double visual to run to your females if you're into DG and clown. And if that caliber of animal speaks to you, go check out RGen Reptiles. The other thing you can do is go to rgenreptiles.com and sign up for his email. You get perks like you would in a Patreon, but it's all free. So you get first dibs on animals if you're on his email list. Doesn't cost you a penny. And I don't know what he sends you, but I can't imagine he's sending you spam or anything, wasting your time. He's got too good of animals and too good things going on to bother with that. So if you're into that, his animals, I would check that out. Next up is, bam, get it over my eyes, Portuguese pythons. That is Renee and Danny Rocha out in Chino, California. If you want to see the kind of stuff they're dealing in, check out my Instagram reels from today. I just unboxed a pied ultramel male and a super blackhead ultramel male. So I think this will be the year of ultramel. But it's not important about what I got. Go check out their Morph Market right now there's 5 auctions going on of really high quality ultramel stuff. There's a acid combo het clown that I'm just thinking off the top of my head, an acid combo het clown that's on there. And I believe a blackhead leopard clown combo that is also on there. And I can't remember if there's any hets on top of it. Visual ultramels, all a year plus old. So really knocking on the door of ready to use. Go check it out. And I happen to know that they're clearing that out because all their new hatchlings are coming out and cooking up right now. Next is Ball Lab. Speaking of the Castle Rock show of the All-American Reptile Plant Expo, that's Trevor at Ball Lab. He is a vendor at that show. Excellent person. I love hanging out with Trevor. He's a very, very good guy. A lot of us subscribe to the idea that we should maybe have a focused plan on our breeding. Trevor subscribes to the idea that the more the merrier, and the more ingredients, the more fun that you can have. So Trevor is working puzzle, ultramel, clown, VPI Axanthic, tri-stripe, monsoon, zebra, and sunset, among all sorts of other cool genes. And he really enjoys like genes that have maybe been forgotten a little bit or put to the back burner, and that maybe haven't experienced combos with some of the newer genes that are out. So if any of that interests you, check it out. Trevor's doing great things. Just a little bit of a personal story. I know that Nick might even know more about it, but I know a breeder unexpectedly passed away in Colorado area. Trevor took in those snakes, took on selling those snakes to get the funds to the gentleman's family. So just kind of tells you the kind of person that Trevor is, and I'm real proud to be associated with him. Last but not least is Chris at B and S Reptilia, the original sponsor of Proper Royals, and I'm so proud to say still sponsor. And I don't mean that in a greedy business way. I mean that in a wonderful relationship way. Long-term relationships mean the world to me. Chris is a fine example of why. Chris Shelley is called B and S Reptilia because he deals in ball pythons, blood pythons, locality boas, colubrids, Pituophis. Pituophis is the pine and the bull snakes, and he will have the permits and the animals to go with it. But at Tinley, the pine and the bull snakes, Pituophis at Tinley, those will be at our table. And Chris is the guest next Wednesday night because next Tuesday night I'm on a plane coming home from San Antonio. I planned poorly, got to do the show on Wednesday night. So thank you for hanging out. There's actually one more viewer than when I started the promos, which might be a new record. I appreciate you hanging out. These are special people, good people doing good things, is really what I like to think of with the family of supporters. So thanks, audience. Thanks for hanging out. Hanging out tonight with Nick Sloan of Sloan Reptiles out of, Nick, where do you claim to be out of? Denver or Castle Rock? Where's home for you?
Warehouse is in Centennial and in Parker. So I live at both.
Okay. All right. Well, fair enough. Then out of, the greater Denver area is Nick Sloan of Sloan Reptiles. And most importantly tonight, talking about All-American Reptile Plant Expo. And the next event for that brand is in Charlotte this weekend at the Park Expo Center. Did I get all that right?
That's correct. It's all perfect.
Okay. I don't know about perfect. All right, now that's in the microphone. See, the microphone got you fooled. It seemed more. Get a little headphone.
I do microphone at the shows. I get a lot of complaints that I don't have a very good announcer voice. So
okay.
The microphone doesn't just help.
I will tell you, there's Robin's obviously good friends with REDLINE and Tinley. I'm never going to do anything to step on anybody's toes, but we were at Tinley one year. And it's at the auction, which is vitally important to USARK. And the house speaker system, no fault of Brian's, was not great. And I leaned over to Robin and I said, Bose Speakers makes a PA that will fill this room with a beautiful, clear sound. And I bet the increase will 10x what that thing will cost you, because I'm pretty cheap and I play through one of those Bose PAs when I'm performing. It's the best sound. It's phenomenal. And anyhow, next Tinley came around, they're using the Bose PA. Now I don't know if it would work. The overhead I thought was pretty good in Denver, and obviously the auction room is much smaller than your venue space. I thought the overhead was pretty good. I thought it was all right.
Oh, the overhead's great. People just don't like my announcer voice.
Okay. Well, I'll leave that between you and them.
Yep. Which is fine. Like, that's not I wouldn't necessarily call that my strong suit. As far as promoting a show goes, I was like, this isn't going to be my favorite part, but Troy's running tickets and my wife will definitely not do that.
I was going to say, like, so what's the behind the scenes on, like, where does all that break up, or who gets what?
So traditionally, like, outside of show hours, I get stuck with like tax stuff and permits and like fire code and that, Troy will do like some stuff with like the fire department. He's working with the fire code a little bit in Charlotte here, which has been just had a little bit of a hiccup with, but like generally I'll do that kind of stuff. In Denver, we have a lot more tax stuff that we have to deal with, like special events tax permits for our vendors. Don't get me started. I'm not the IRS. I'm not supposed to.
No, you gotta play the game. You either get mad and you quit, or you figure out how to do it and make your money.
Exactly. So usually that's what I'm doing. And then obviously, like, I work my construction business all day. So a lot of the stuff is like, I feel like a jerk because I'm just like, hey, did we do this? Hey, did we do this? Hey, did we do this? And I'm doing a voice note, like just sending off, feel like I'm barking orders to the team, like, hey, do this. And but I feel like I'm just sort of like let's make sure things stay in check.
Yeah.
And so Troy's generally like getting invoices done, helping doing the map stuff, like communicating a little bit with vendors if they need to. We all sort of get messages from vendors because some of them know one of us better than the other, and we just hear from them more.
Sure. Yeah.
And then at the show, Troy's doing tickets, Lisa's doing tickets, Lauren's running around doing tickets a little bit, but then she runs and she's talking to vendors, making sure vendors are doing well and all that kind of stuff, which is what I try to do as well while I run around the show. But this last one, I tell you, if you've ever had a radio sitting on you running around doing something like this, like hearing, hey, Nick, is like, please no. Like, what's Nick?
Just see Nick out by the food trucks, just throwing the radio as far as he can across the soccer fields.
That was almost, I was almost there. When it was like, hey, Nick, we have a row of 45 cars blocking each other in. Cause like, for some reason, this row of cars, like they're normal front to front, they all figured it out. But then someone decided, let's park behind this person and block this person in. And then 45 more people decided to do the same thing. And I was like, I feel like I drive every day, and this is wild.
Yeah, I think that there's like I know it was for me. So I went it seemed like a natural progression. You go from restaurants to private clubs to golf resorts. And then the short version is 1 year at a PGA tournament, we had Kenny G perform, and like 3,000 people showed up. Pretty good. We can handle that. The next year, they said everybody who has tickets can come. It'll be an outdoor performance, and they can line the fairway if they like, and it'll be neat. We'll get a few more people than Kenny G, and it'll be Darius Rucker. And that was like 07, 08. So like the peak of his time. And like 19,000 people showed up. And I remember like the vice president of food and beverage, like he's like in my ear on a radio. He's going, Adam, where can we get more beer? And I'm like, I don't know. Anywhere there's none. You're dead. There's nothing to do about it. You're not going to fix it. I was like, yeah, trust me, it's in the notes. But right here and right now, we just need this guy to play the hits, hit the fog machine, and get out of here. That's what we need.
We need this show to end.
Yeah, get in his ear and ask him where he's going to get beer from. So I can empathize a little bit. Again, I've never run a reptile show, but I do have some empathy for that. It seems pretty clear to me. I don't know you that well, but it seems pretty clear to me. You're not afraid to take on some business risk and to go after something you see a good angle on. Tell me a little bit where that comes from and where that either inspiration or confidence comes from, and maybe any insight for it's. I love that mindset now, although still, again, I've sort of chuckled at the deposits, but that it's a really finite thing that at that moment you're in. I don't know that I would be comfortable taking that on, and I'm pretty ambitious at the moment. So, like, what's the thought process that goes in that, and what led to this moment where you're confident in doing this kind of stuff?
It's a long story.
Okay.
So I've never had a job where I work for someone else.
Okay.
Besides, like, my dad, I helped do with his business. So my dad came over from Scotland in the 80s. And he started a coffee roasting business with my mom.
Oh, cool.
One of the fastest growing coffee businesses in Colorado. Sold that, wanted to move to Arizona, started another coffee roasting business, started some shops. So I did some coffee stores, that kind of stuff, some franchising. So I've always helped in that. Like, I've helped roast coffee, I've helped package coffee and do that kind of stuff. So I've been familiar with that. I never was really paid in like any traditional term of that.
Right.
And then, like, the snake business is, like, the snakes have always been part of my life. Like, I caught them when I was 2 years old, and my parents were like, "Well, we should probably buy him one so he stops catching things outside and might get killed by a rattlesnake." And
right.
So I've always had, like, at 12 years old, I had 75 different animals inside of the basement of our house. And long story short, without going like really too into details, my mother had a really bad hysterectomy that got butchered. She had thousands and thousands and thousands in medical debt. They ended up having to file bankruptcy, lose sort of everything. Had to sue the doctor and get money back for what they had done. And in the time of that was happening, like, my dad was still doing the roasting a little bit, but the snakes had really started to really become something. And we had spent a little bit of money before, and the lawsuit came in, and they were like, "Well, like, let us help you start a business." And
wow,
what could we do? So I think it was like $75,000, and we threw it into the snakes and went for it. From there, that actually ended up paying the bills for the entire family for a while. So I was 15 when we really jumped in. We're like, let's go. And in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2009 even, we were selling ball pythons like crazy.
Yeah.
You know, the market, it's funny that, like, the recession, it was right at the end of the recession, but we were
right.
We were selling champagnes left and right. I think I remember listing a $5,500 pastel champagne.
In 2011. That's fantastic. That's a house down payment then.
Yeah. And it was on kingsnake.com.
Yeah.
Sold in
Wild West. Yeah. People think now's the Wild West. They should have seen then, huh?
Oh yeah. Go to kingsnake.com and you'll be like, what is this place?
Right.
And so we were supporting the family for a really long time with that. And we had a few bad business decisions. I was friggin' 18 years old, 17 years old. Like, I wasn't wise, and I wouldn't say I'm all that wise now, but I've grown through those things and made some decisions. And we took a step back from the reptile industry, sort of took a hiatus. I still kept breeding because I love these things dearly. And we started a construction business with the entire family, and we mostly sell windows and doors. So in that business, we sort of got into it because my dad started selling windows. Company that he was working for was like, I don't want it anymore. And wow. So he just took over.
I was gonna say, I mean, is it, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but like in my mind, I was like, coffee to windows does there start to become a mindset of like, stuff is just stuff. I know how to build a brand. I know how to move stuff. I know how to make relationships. I know how to look at demographics. Is that sort of the mindset?
A little bit. So my father's a salesman, like through and through.
I see.
The Scottish accent really just sells it for him.
Yeah, leg up on everybody, right?
People are just like, I'll buy from this guy.
Yeah.
But for me, like, the snakes, more of how I can sell, like, the snakes and the reptiles is like, I love them. I love the plants. I do that. So I can interact with people and talk to people about that kind of stuff. My level of stuff, I feel like I'm more on like the personal side of it. And that's where the construction business right now for me is, I can't continue to do the laborious part of it because like there's more that I'm drawn to of what I do.
Right.
I can't necessarily sell like my father does. I can't go out and sell something that I'm not like fully passionate about. Like, I'm not passionate about windows. It's like I
But
could,
you do need, like, you understand the need for them. Like, people need windows. They might not need snakes, but you need windows, and you may as well have a good one, right? From
and
Sloan, right?
selling things that is needed is like definitely something that I can also do. Like if I need to put the salesman face on, I'm gonna put it on. But like it's easier for me to walk around, go to these shows, and sell our show to a vendor because I'm like I love this, and like
Yeah,
I
right.
like that. So when I try to do something, I want to love it. I want to enjoy it more than I don't want to go sell cars because I enjoy my cars. I don't know that much about my cars. I couldn't sell a car to somebody because I'm like, it's not my thing. Like,
Right.
not
Right.
what I
I
am.
got you.
So that's been a little bit more through the business portion of that. And I sell stuff all the time. Like I'm a general contractor. I have the license for it, and I've done general contracting jobs on the side and all that. I feel like my strong point has been more of organization of things and people and directing things.
Yeah.
I was a young life leader for 8 years, so I led kids,
Yeah.
directed them. So the show sort of became a natural instinct of, okay, I think I can coordinate this. And
Yeah.
money wise, I don't know. I have to do like a little bit of a self check in my head of like, all right, we're gonna put this big deposit down. It never existed in the first place. It's all a puff in the wind. And like I do trust in our ability though. Like Troy's, mine, Lauren's, Lisa's. I trust that we're going to put everything that we possibly can into this. So when we put a deposit down on a place, Denver, Charlotte, Kansas, and Charlotte being the biggest risk of them all, I know that we have the ability for it. And that's, I think, probably what the biggest thing that's helped through our entrepreneurial success through all the businesses that we have is that like I'm confident that I know what I want to do and that I know what I'm talking about, not in like a braggadocious way, but in I have to know myself or else we're not going to move forward.
Right.
We certainly have like the downfalls and the pitfalls and the doubts, right? Like all of us do. And, Charlotte could have easily been a very big doubt. Like, oh, what if we get 5 people through the door?
Right.
But I'm like, well, if we could do it in Denver, we can do it in Charlotte.
Yeah.
So that, as far as like all the businesses go, and that's where Lauren and I talk all the time, like what could be the next thing that we work on and what we like to do. Because I would like to move into things that could make it so I can hang out with my kids more often, where I'm not doing the stuff that, I fell off a ladder last year doing stuff, and I was like, I'm getting older. Like, a lot of people in the industry might be like, you're young. Like, I'm not a teenager anymore.
Yeah. I empathize with you, whether anybody else does. My exit from restaurant operations was waking up one day and my son was 9 years old and he's our only child, and he's going to be our only child. So you go, wait a minute, 18, like that's sort of the, and you're like, wait, it's halfway. And it just, it really hit me. And, thank you for sharing that story. And thanks for there were some really raw moments in there, and I appreciate you sharing that as well. I find a lot of entrepreneurs that are extremely successful. It sounds like a curse, but it's really a blessing in disguise. And I wouldn't wish anything on anybody of that magnitude, but it's almost like when you stare down something awful, you're not really scared of, like you say, it wasn't there to begin with. I'll go get it again. What do you like? Come get me kind of thing. And all of that, my mother passed away of cancer way too young. And so there's always been this drive in my head of like, it's unhealthy sometimes when I go, well, don't waste this day because you might not have an extra day. And sometimes I take that way too far, and probably to unhealthy levels of lack of sleep and anxiety and all that. But the other part of me is like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to go back and run restaurants, and I'm really good at that too. And like, I did have a great time at it. It wasn't healthy loving it. It wasn't healthy working 70 hours a week, or like you say, falling off a ladder or working till 3 a.m. but I could do it. So let me go take a shot at this thing that I really love and see what I can make of it. And that's been fun. I haven't dove. What was the past tense of dive? Dove in as far as you have on something. I was like trying to say dove in or something. Anyway, I haven't dived. I haven't jumped in as far as you have, but I get it. And I find it encouraging. I hope other people do too. I'm really glad I asked you that. And I'm really glad you were willing to be just as kind of bare and raw with that as you were. My best to you and your family, man. That's really cool.
Absolutely. I mean, I tell people in the show, like, I want to be as open as possible. You know, I'm going to tell you numbers. I'm going to tell you the things that are important to you in this show. I'm not going to lie to you. And I'm going to tell you why the things that I do. And that part of the shows for me, like I enjoy getting to know people and letting people know, like, I care about them.
Yeah.
That's an important aspect that most of us forget about. Part of entrepreneurship is caring about people.
Yeah.
Because anyone can buy anything. You know, you could go out and you can go into Walmart, you can buy whatever you want, but if there's someone that cares about you in a store that's selling it for a little bit more, you're probably going to go there. And with all of our vendors, what I would love, and we're trying to incorporate some new things and do some stuff that can, like, encourage vendors and encourage people through the door. But, like, the shows have really pushed a new mindset on me of, like, each person is their own person. They're in their own head. They're in their own world. I can't get mad at them when they're mad about something because they thought it was a slight against them.
Yeah.
But really just something that's in their head. But if someone comes into a show, they've spent money at the show because they want to come in, they want to see what they've got. If they come to your booth and you're sitting down and you're ignoring them and you're doing all this kind of stuff, that person in their hand could possibly be holding an entire month's salary trying to spend it. Like that, we forget so often that these people have worked an hour, 5 hours, 40 hours, 120 hours to pay for what you have on your table.
Yeah.
And, like, they're trusting you with their hard work money, like earned money. Give them everything.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's $20, because if it's $20 snake, that's still an hour of a lot of people's time.
Right.
That's wild.
And that's pre-tax. They still got to go work another half hour afterwards and then pay the gas to get there. Thanks for saying that too. I completely agree. And I even tell other vendors, like, I'll hear people say, oh, I only did so much today or only did so much today. And I'll say, man, do you know how hard I've worked in my life for that amount of money that you're just like, well, it was okay. Like,
yeah,
maybe, I know that there's overhead and, I know we all got to live and we got to eat. And maybe the market's not what it used to be, but I also think that some of those expectations are a little bit bonkers and almost entitled sometimes. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but like I still remember waiting tables and working a double, which meant I worked at least 11 hours and probably longer and not a great condition. I still remember the first time I made $100, man. And I was so thankful I had made that for the whole day. And I know inflation, money's not what it used to be, blah, 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 but we just don't, but we just don't take it we take it for granted sometimes. And I think as an industry, we could get a little better about that too. Like it's a little crazy.
And I think that's what we're wanting to change. We want, like, the shows are a good marketing aspect for people. So, like, if you're spending money, like if you do taxes, which probably you have to, or you're getting in trouble.
I do. I don't know if anybody else does, but yes, I do. And I will say too, I don't like taxes, but I like knowing that I could prove to a bank that I want to invest in me in the future, that I've done X, Y, and Z, and that I'm trustworthy and reliable.
Yes, 100%. And so, like, if people are like, oh, the show was this much money, it's like, okay, you have a marketing expense right there for your business that, it wasn't too much, right? And you can write that off on your taxes, and it's going to go towards your bottom dollar later on.
Yeah.
If you didn't make something that day, I hope you had some really good conversations, because those people are going to come back to you. Like, if someone walked up to you, felt like, hey, this was great. I learned something from this person. They're going to come back to you because they remember you. If
Yeah.
they walk away and they're like, oh, I think I saw that snake at this guy's table. If you didn't interact with that person, right? If I'm sitting at a booth and like I'm not the perfect salesperson at selling my snakes, I mean, I feel like I do a fairly good job. But if people walk by my booth, every person that walks by, I go, hey, how's it going?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I don't have to like bombard them. Hey, how much money you got to spend with me today?
Right. Yeah.
I say, hey, how's it going? And they're like, oh, it's good. I'm like, if you have any questions, please just let me know.
Yep.
That's it. That's what you got to say. You could use different iterations on it, right? You don't have to be a robot with every single person because like someone else is going to be there at the same exact time and you have to go talk to them. And if you say the same thing, they're like, oh, that's annoying. Or like, hey, is there anything you're looking for in particular? Can I help? Can I guide you to something? And if it's a vendor, guess what? You still made an impact on those people and say, hey, go over to this person on this vendor. And they're like, wow, that guy was great. Like he led me to where I want what I wanted. And so next time I'm going to come back and I'm going to see if he has something that I want.
Oh yeah. What a great trust building, like exercise. I remember seeing, speaking of the Tampa show, and I will say these names. I remember seeing Steve Casino walk somebody over to George MD's table, and George was vending with Dale at Constricted Reptiles, and Dale was nice enough to host me to vend with him. And I remember just having my mind blown, like this was a whale sale, and there's Steve Casino walking him to George MD, and me going, Steve, I know you had something this guy would have bought, like in my head. And then like years later, looking back going, what like a amazing flex to be like, no, I got the guy over here. He'll take your thousands, but you're going to remember that I'm the guy. And Adam's going to talk about it 2 years later on his show sometime in Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. You have to make an impact. And this isn't calling anyone out because trust me, there's people, I understand you have to sit down during the shows because you may have ailments. You may have something.
Yeah, no, I know where you're going, and no chairs at my table. You'll never find a chair at my booth. Yeah.
Interact with everybody.
Yeah.
Interact. I know it's hard because some of us are introverts that breed a particular niche species that we're just super nerd about, and we know every single detail about them. And if someone walks up to our table and they're like, wow, that looks like a bearded dragon, you're like, I hate you and I want you to go.
Right. Yeah, right. You can go die now.
But like, talk to them, because that person later is going to hopefully be the nerd that you are. And they're going to come back and they'll be like, that guy was great to me. I learned so much about this. I want to come back.
Yeah. I think it's an easy leg up too, because all the stuff you're describing is rampant. There's snobbery. There's all of that stuff, disinterest. Like, just be better. Just just reach the people. Oh man, I'm really passionate about it. And whether it was wine in restaurants or we're talking about snobbery, man, that's wine world is we're full of it. But man, Nick, I could talk all night with you, but I do sort of have a social contract with the audience that, if it goes longer than 90 minutes, we might need a second episode. And but all seriousness, give us the wrap up pitch on this weekend. Let's make sure we get the right details out there for everybody.
You got it. All right. So All American Reptile and Plant Expo will be in Charlotte, North Carolina, the Park Expo and Conference Center. Friday, we have a VIP that's 4 to 7 p.m. So if you come in, you want to see vendors before there's a crowd of people, this is a perfect opportunity for you. Not everyone will be set up. I have to always disclaim that. We have some vendors that are hobbyists that work normal hours, normal days, that they have to come in on Friday morning. So if you buy VIP tickets, you also get Friday morning early access at 9 a.m. You beat the crowds, you get to do some stuff. Our general admission is going to open at 10 a.m. We close a little bit later in Charlotte. It's going to be 6 p.m. Closing.
Wow, long day.
We have a few vendors that are just like, we need a longer show. We need a longer show. Okay, 6 o'clock. Let's see how it goes. We're going to test it. I don't know if it's going to work, but 6 p.m. So 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. is general admission. 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday is general admission. We don't have a VIP on Sunday. We like to let our vendors sleep in a little bit because of that. If you're a vendor, if you're watching this, if you haven't gotten your email for all the load-in information, please email us at aarpexpo@gmail.com. we're going to send you that load in info. We have a couple of things. We're going to do pizza on Friday night as a vendor appreciation while supplies last, because there's a lot more vendors than in Castle Rock. And then we'll do a sort of vendor hangout at Optimist Hall on Saturday night. And we'll be there. So go to All American Reptile Plant Expo. No and. I have to remember we don't have an and in our so allamericanreptileplantexpo.com, or you can find All American Reptile and Plant Expo on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and learn all that information.
Nick, I wish you guys the best. I regret so much I can't be there. Robin he and I had worked out me being there, and then this other work thing came up where I gotta go. I have to go to San Antonio, and to be honest, I had flirted with the idea of being in Charlotte Friday and Saturday and then just flying straight to San Antonio. But these animals here, I got to be around them too, and too many days on the road and all that. So you got my word. I will be at the next one if I am able, and one of these ones I will be at. And thanks so much, man. I had a really great time hanging out tonight. It was good to get to know you when you could, I don't know if relax is the right word, but you didn't have a radio you were fighting with all day. And I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
No, of course. I'm glad that I was able to get on. I'm glad to be able to talk, and hopefully we can have another time to do this.
Most definitely. You're welcome back anytime. Again, my best to your family. I got to hang out with your brother. Of course, Lauren is amazing and a wonderful, welcoming presence, just like yourself, to me there in Denver. Audience, next week, I usually say same place, same time. It won't be the same time. It'll be on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Instead of Tuesday. So Wednesday show next week with Chris from B and S Reptilia. If you get a chance, go check out the All American Reptile and Plant Expo if you want to check them out online. No and in the middle there. Nick, thanks so much, man. I would say good luck, but I bet you probably don't need that. So I'm really happy for you. Godspeed on everything. And again, my best to your family, man. Thank you for being here tonight, Nick.
Of course. Thanks, Adam.
All right. I will see you soon. Stick around for just a second.
Yeah.